Today is July 11th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up.
Discover your next mission in the space industry with the Space News Job Exchange. Visit spacenews.com/jobs to find top aerospace roles and connect with leading employers. And for employers, use discount code JOBEX for 15% off your next purchase.
Here are today's top headlines in space. A Senate appropriations bill that would override proposed cuts to NASA is in limbo. Despite advances in satellite servicing technology, satellite operators have been slow to adopt such capabilities. NASA said there is a strong chance the next test flight of Boeing's CST-100 Starliner commercial crew vehicle will be uncrewed. The British government has confirmed it will participate in a new funding round for satellite operator Eutelsat. Investment in space companies increased in the second quarter despite broader economic challenges. And an experimental Chinese satellite has been located in an orbit not used before by the country.
First Up is produced by Space News, the industry standard for professional space journalism. Visit spacenews.com for breaking news, policy updates, and original analysis.
We begin today with news that a Senate appropriations bill that would override proposed cuts to NASA is in limbo. The Senate Appropriations Committee met Thursday to consider its Commerce, Justice, and Science spending bill for fiscal year 2026, which includes funding for NASA, NOAA, and the National Science Foundation. The committee recessed before completing its markup after a dispute over a proposed amendment regarding use of funding for a new FBI headquarters. While the committee has not released the draft of the bill, senators said it would provide $24.9 billion for NASA, reversing a proposed cut of nearly 25% for the agency and keeping it near 2025 spending levels. That funding included $7.3 billion for science, about the same as 2025. The bill also kept funding for NSF flat after a proposal to slash its budget by more than 50%, while also maintaining funding for a NOAA geo-weather satellite program the administration proposed to cut back. Despite advances in satellite servicing technology, satellite operators have been slow to adopt such capabilities. A report released Thursday by the GAO concluded that NASA and the Department of Defense have hesitated to fully commit to satellite servicing even after funding various demonstrations of relevant technologies. The slow adoption reflects a coordination problem between satellite operators and service providers, the report concluded. Operators don't design spacecraft with servicing interfaces because few providers offer the capability, while providers don't develop key infrastructure because of limited demand. NASA said there is a strong chance the next test flight of Boeing's CST-100 Starliner commercial crew vehicle will be uncrewed. At a briefing Thursday about the upcoming SpaceX Crew 11 mission to the International Space Station, agency officials said they are continuing work to correct problems Starliner suffered on its crewed test flight last year, including testing underway of thrusters and seals. NASA is planning a Starliner test flight no sooner than early next year, and the agency said that while it not decided on a plan for that event, there are a lot of advantages for it to carry only cargo. A successful test flight could allow Starliner to begin regular crew rotation missions later next year. The British government has confirmed it will participate in a new funding round for satellite operator Eutelsat. The UK will invest $191 million into Eutelsat to maintain its 10.89% stake that was in danger of being diluted after the French government announced new funding for the company. The British investment would bring the total raised to around €1.5 billion, $1.76 billion, to help Eutelsat fund upgrades to its increasingly strategic OneWeb LEO constellation. The UK government got its current stake in Eutelsat when the operator acquired OneWeb, which the UK and Party Global had rescued from bankruptcy. Investment in space companies increased in the second quarter despite broader economic challenges. Early-stage investor Space Capital reported Thursday that space companies raised $3.2 billion in the second quarter, the highest quarterly amount in more than a year. The activity was driven by satellite-related companies and breakout momentum in the emerging industries subset of what Space Capital classifies as infrastructure, comprising firms providing the hardware and software needed to build, launch, and operate assets in orbit. That funding included nearly $1 billion that went to players in emerging areas such as space stations and orbital logistics. While the U.S. continues to dominate overall funding, the research indicates a growing surge in European space investment as geopolitical tensions drive efforts to build sovereign capabilities. An experimental Chinese satellite has been located in an orbit not used before by the country. China launched the classified Xi'an 28B01 satellite July 3rd on a Long March 4C rocket from Xichang Spaceport, but the spacecraft was not located in a 35-degree orbit expected based on the trajectory of the launch. The spacecraft has now been found in a roughly 795-kilometer orbit inclined by 11 degrees. The low inclination orbit would see the spacecraft pass over portions of the South China Sea, as well as the Indian Ocean. It is unknown if its purposes will be for uses such as regional monitoring, communications tests, or signal intelligence capabilities.
Share your company's news with the entire space industry through Stellar Dispatch, the press release service from Space News. Learn more and use discount code SD2106 for 15% off when you submit yours at spacenews.com/Stellar Dispatch.
In other news, China has emerged as an increasingly dominant space power, including in exploration. Over the past decade of quiet, long-term strategic planning, China has emerged as the world's second leading space power, behind only the United States. Over the next few years, China expects to achieve space firsts and forge new partnerships, and, if events go as planned, even set the agenda for space exploration. That includes progress towards a crewed lunar landing by the end of the decade and a Mars sample return mission likely to return samples by the early 2030s, ahead of a NASA-led mission currently in danger of cancellation. Ars Technica reports that Russia, meanwhile, is demonstrating its space capabilities with advanced military satellite maneuvers. The Cosmos 2588 satellite launched in May into an orbit that brings it close to an American reconnaissance satellite, USA 338, with the Russian satellite performing maneuvers to keep it close to the American one. Another spacecraft, Cosmos 2558, recently released a payload that made relatively close passes to another American spy satellite. Some Western observers believe the Russian space could be demonstrating anti-satellite weapons or themselves be ASATs. PCMag reports that a document suggests Starlink generated less revenue than some projections. The filing by a SpaceX subsidiary, Starlink Satellite Services Corp TARS, with a Dutch organization reported $2.7 billion in revenues from Starlink services in 2024, compared to $1.4 billion in 2023. The filing indicated that Europe was the subsidiary's biggest market in terms of revenue, with nearly $735 million generated in 2023-2024. That figure is lower than some previous outside projections of Starlink revenue, but may not include Starlink services sold directly through SpaceX in the United States, as well as government revenue. The latest Axiom Space private astronaut mission is scheduled to wrap up early next week. NASA said Thursday that the Crew Dragon spacecraft flying the AX-4 mission will undock from the station as soon as Monday. The spacecraft has been at the station since June 26th on a mission that was scheduled to last about 2 weeks. The Free Press reports that former NASA administrator nominee Jared Isaacman says he is considering a career in politics. He said in an interview that he's considering running for Congress as a Republican, saying that after he got over the initial intimidation factor of dealing with politicians as part of the confirmation process, he felt interested in participating. "My fork in the road is either politics or going back into space," he said. The BBC reports that a comet passing through the solar system might be older than the solar system itself. Astronomers recently discovered the object, designated 3I/ATLAS, finding it to be a comet from outside the solar system passing through on a hyperbolic trajectory. One analysis of the object, presented at a British astronomy conference this week, suggests it could be more than 7 billion years old, much older than our solar system. The object may be rich in water ice and create a long tail as that ice vaporizes during its passage through the inner solar system.